Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. I'm still Jim Stump. I thank you for your comments and your emails. And if you'd like to, those of you who don't know the email address, it's counselorscouch101 at mail.com. Counselorscouch101 at mail.com. There have been some questions come up about insurance lately, so I thought I would talk a little bit about insurance and how all that works for everybody. But before I do that, I need to make a correction. Last week, a lady sent me an email and asked if I took Medicare. And I assumed she meant if I took Medicare payments for counseling. And I told her I did not. And then 2 days ago, I received a communication from one of the agencies I work for. And they say, yes, now we do take Kaiser Medicare insurance. I don't know what the difference is between Medicare and Kaiser Medicare. Maybe it's just being filtered through an insurance company, and somehow the agency I work for, that works for them. Somehow they figured out so it works. I don't know for certain. But a lot of folks have trouble with Medicare because there's a lot of difficulties. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it takes a while to get paid, et cetera, et cetera. And it's difficult. I'll explain that as we go. But let's go back to the basics of what it's all about with insurance. Now, from the counselor's point of view and relationship with insurance payments and like that, it goes like this. The first thing you have to do is to be vetted by an insurance company. Now, if you want to deal with a lot of insurance companies, you have to be vetted by each one in turn, one at a time. Usually it takes a bit of time. It can take months. It can take easily 7 months to get through the vetting process. They ask you a lot of questions. They ask you to submit documents. They ask you to submit history. They ask you to submit all sorts of things. It's a tedious process, right? And you go through all this, and if you're accepted by the company, ultimately, they will place you on a panel, all right? Now, it is a panel of providers. That's what it's all about there. That's what it's called. In other words, you become a name on a list of counselors who are able to provide counseling under that insurance company. So usually when someone calls up and they say they want to do counseling, et cetera, and they ask about insurance, actually, I don't deal with any of that anymore because it's too much trouble, too troublesome and too difficult to get paid, and et cetera, et cetera. But the idea is that if someone is looking for counseling and they want to use their insurance, I suggest that they contact their insurance company and ask for a list of providers. That's the first thing I say. Call your insurance company, ask for a list of providers, then look through there and see if there's anybody that you know or know of or who would like to work with or would like to have a conversation with to see if you'd like to work with them. Pick someone from off that list, and that is the easiest and the quickest way to go for both the person, the client who is looking for a counselor, and for the counselor who can provide the client with services, right? Take someone who is already on the list of providers. That's the easiest way to go. Other times, I should say rather oftentimes, people say, I want to work with you. I say, okay, well then at that point, I need to discover what their insurance company is and whether or not I'm on that particular panel. Now, I've told you before in some of these posts that I don't like doing all this paperwork. It takes a lot of time. It's frustrating. It's aggravating, and you can end up not getting paid after all your work and going through all the different hoops they want you to jump through, and they still don't want to pay you, or they don't want to pay you very much. So it's very frustrating. I tend to not want to do it. In my case, and in the case of a lot of other counselors that I know, we work through agencies, right? Agencies are like a group of counselors working together with an administrative staff. And then the administrative staff does all that work, and it takes it off the shoulders of the counselors so they can concentrate on helping people that come in with their issues and their relationship problems. We concentrate on that. Let the staff worry about the insurance payments and receiving the money and etc. That's why I do it. I belong to two different agencies working with staffs like that. And I also have my own personal, what we would call private private clients, right? And the deal with that is usually when I'm working with someone for a while, and let's say they started out with working with me through an agency and they were paying with their insurance. Let's say the insurance ran out, but they still want to do counseling with me. At that point, it becomes fee for service. I mean, there's just no other option if you're going to get paid for doing the work, right? So that means that they're going to pay me directly. Now, you can do that through an agency. They can pay the agency, and then the agency would take a certain percentage and give me whatever they're going to deem was right for me to receive. Or we can go directly. So the client would be paying me directly. There would be no agency fees withdrawn from the payment, right? And oftentimes, if we're going to do that, that's probably the way to go. Um, Most of the time, the agencies don't matter and don't mind because they understand what the situation is, and there's really no one for them to bill anyway. The client's just making payments. There's another advantage, particularly this time of year, that I'll point out, that when you work for an agency, the agency compiles records that you can submit for your tax returns and like that. It's another reason for doing it. You just send in the forms. It's a whole lot easier than trying to list all the money you made and et cetera, and go through those problems. Those are reasons why I work with agencies, right? Now, going back to insurance companies, once upon a time, before COVID, pre-COVID, COVID changed all of our lives, didn't it? Really did. Pre-COVID, and insurance companies would provide counseling services, but there would be a limit. It might be 4 or 6 or 10 or 12. Those are sort of like common numbers of numbers of visits that an insurance company would pay for. Also, there are other employee assistance programs that did similar things, and usually they had fewer numbers of visits involved with employee assistance programs, right? But you could call them up and you can get their provider list. You could find a counselor on their list. You could contact that counselor and you could talk to them for whatever the number of visits that are provided. And then after that, if you wanted to continue, then you'd pay for the service yourself, right? And that's how that usually worked. Some insurance companies are very generous and clients could stay for a goodly length of time. Some had no set amount of visits that you could have. You could meet with a counselor forever, apparently, and those are good for the clients. But back in the old days, there used to be what they call a copay. Even the copay could become prohibitive over time for people who didn't have adequate or resources to pay out of pocket with. Right? I told people if I had to pay, say, $20, $25 a week for counseling, that would add up very quickly, and I would feel the financial pinch. So we're all aware of that kind of stuff, and we try to help people the best we can. But going back to insurance companies, that's what they would do. Now, when COVID hit, some companies, they started to say, okay, we don't want you in those little offices, right? Because we don't want you sharing germs and getting everyone sick. Clients come in, they bring the germs into the room. The next client comes in and breathes those germs, and etc. They didn't want that. So they said, if you're willing to go and talk to people on the telephone and via various electronic communication devices, they said, we'll waive the copay and you can go do that. It was a means by which they want to encourage people to distance themselves during COVID, right? It was very effective, and it had some ramifications, particularly for me. Prior to COVID, clients were not all that plentiful, right? We're making a living, just sort of getting along, not really having extra income or anything to brag about or extra money to spend. We're just getting along. When COVID hit, all of a sudden we had more work than we can handle. It's like, the fishing story of Peter and the net and all that, when he said, Lord, there's no fish out here. And the Lord said, throw it on the other side of the boat. And he drew in all those fish. It was kind of like that. The net was filled to overflowing and it was bursting from the weight, and they had to call people in to take care of all the work that was coming. So that was what was going on at the beginning of and through COVID. Now lately things are changing back again, which is what was to be expected all along, right? Things were going to go back to normal sooner or later. At least that's what everyone hoped. COVID was going to disappear. We wouldn't have to do all these shenanigans to keep away from everybody else and to learn how to do things on the computer and stay at home as opposed to going out into the world. That seems to be what's going on now. So it seems like insurance companies are drawing back a bit. They're starting to reinstitute copays, which are going to be difficult for clients. And they're starting to go back to putting a number on the number of visits and conversations that you can have with your clients, etc. So things are changing. They're going back. The economy is being hit by something that a lot of folks I talk to cannot explain. They know what's going on. They can describe it to you, but it just seems bleak going into the future, and nobody knows what's going to come next. That also puts a fear into various markets, and folks are losing jobs because companies are afraid of the future, and they don't know what's coming financially. So consequently, that affects folks' ability to go to counseling. Either they lose their insurance altogether and they have to pay for it out of their pocket, which is difficult, or they simply can't go at all because they don't have the wherewithal. So that's affecting what's going on with counselors. Now, why do I tell you this? I have a client I've been talking to for a while, and what happened was some months ago, um, his employer changed the insurance provider that they were giving for their employees, right? At that point, the new insurance provider kept saying that I was not on their panel of providers for counseling services, right? And the client who I was been working with for a while said, I don't care. I want this counselor. I don't want to start over. He already knows me. I don't want to have to go back and do all this stuff and build a new relationship and find someone else. I says, we worked very well together. I want to continue with this counselor. They argued and argued and argued. And finally, the client said, look, it's got to be this way or else. I don't know what he threatened him with. Probably not much of anything, just a bunch of complaints. But they finally said, okay, and they tried to send me a bunch of their vetting paperwork and et cetera, et cetera. Well, it came to the agency I worked for, and the agency went through all the hoops trying to get this thing to line up and allow me to work with this client, with this particular insurance company. The insurance company kept saying that I wasn't meeting their requirements, I wasn't signing their paperwork, I wasn't doing this, I wasn't doing that, I wasn't doing the other thing. It was extremely frustrating and annoying to be told again and again, no matter how many times I responded, that I was not responding well enough. Well, as some of you might guess, it's an old tactic when somebody does not want to pay a bill. They want to keep throwing things in the way and keep creating problems until people just say, this is not worth it. They quit and they go away. And then the insurance company, in this case, does not have to pay. Essentially, that's what happened here. I'm the one who blinked, right? I said, I don't want to keep going through this stuff. It's just not worth it to me. And not only that, their remuneration was extremely low, and it took a long, long time to even receive it, right? I just wasn't interested. However, I care about my people. I don't abandon the people I care about and work with. I don't. And so I told him, I said, hey, look, let's just talk. Don't worry about it. Forget the insurance company. Let's just talk, right? And it's what a lot of you might recognize as pro bono. You do it for the good of the person. You do it for the good of the community. You don't do it because you're making money out of it. So that's what I propose we do in that instance. I said, look, I didn't tell him that. I just said, look, let's forget the insurance company. Let's just talk. And that's what we've been doing since that time. I imagine the client thinks that the insurance company is paying me. Well, they aren't, and I don't really care. That's not the point. I want to be of service to this gentleman. I understand his situation. I understand why he wants to continue talking. I think it's a valid reason, and so we proceed on. There's a slight problem with this, as you might guess. If I had my way, and it's the reason I work for agencies, is I don't have to go through all this billing and worry about money, because I think it sort of contaminates the relationship. I don't want to make it be about being a paid friend. I don't like that at all. But the problem is, sooner or later, I have to eat. Sooner or later, I have to pay bills. It's a sad reality, but there it is. Sooner or later, I have to have some income in order to meet expenses. I don't ask people for a lot, but I do sort of would like to have enough to get by, right? I do a lot of pro bono work. I've done a lot of it for a very long time. I try to help people out. I think that's what we're supposed to do in the world. And I keep hoping that the universe will provide the sustenance for me to, continue on, keep helping people and do the best I can. So anyway, I'm reminded about that. The gentleman I mentioned last week in a post who called up and he was cursing at me and this, that, and the other thing. And there's some more parts to that that have to do with insurance companies. Now, this is what happened in that instance. For those who don't remember, I'll try to go through it briefly. And those who did, like I said, I'll try to go through it quickly. Gentleman called up from a referring agency, because all our names are on an agency. If we don't have our names posted on this agency, we sort of don't exist. If you're not online, you don't exist. So my name's on there. The agency sent me a notice saying this guy called and he's going to call you, and here's his name and here's his number, and etc. Normally, I don't take those calls. I let the agency administrative staff handle that stuff. It's just easier, it's quicker, and it saves me being the middleman, because you're going to have to talk to them anyway, so why bother talking to me to begin with? But I don't know, it was just one of those days. And I got the notice, and all of a sudden the guy called, and I could see his name and his phone number on my cell phone screen. I just decided to answer it. I said hello and this and that. And he said, I have to have a counselor. I said to him, what do you want to work on? He said, I don't want to work on anything, but I have to have a counselor. And I said, okay, well then, what are we going to do? And he started coming at me like, don't you know what we're supposed to do? I mean, aren't you the counselor? Don't you know how this goes? And he says, well, normally people have something they want to talk about when they come here. They have an issue or something they want to fix, something they want to improve. And he said, I don't want anything. I have to be here. I said, okay, well, who's requiring that you be here? And he said, everybody. They're all telling me I have to go to counseling. I'm sitting there saying, okay, well, who's everybody? I'm trying to ask him, who are you talking about? I mean, you're talking about your wife, your girlfriend, your family, the company you work for, your neighbors, your church, the police department, the court. Who's everybody? He said all that stuff. He started getting more and more aggressive with me, etc. And I said, well, do you have insurance? And then he got really mad. He said, there we go. Money, 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 money. That's all you care about. You just want money. You don't care about anything else. You don't care about people. You just want money, money, money. I said, well, most people would rather not have to pay for counseling out of their pocket. They would rather use their insurance company. That's why I'm asking, and he got even more angry, telling me that I'm just a money grubber, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, finally, I said, do you have insurance? And he said, yes, I have insurance. And I said, well, what kind of insurance? And he got really angry at me. And he said, I work for yada, 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 and I have the best insurance in the world. And I said, okay, that's fine. That's great for you, etc. Does it have a name? And then he just started screaming at me. Does your insurance have a name? I mean, because I can't take the insurance if I'm not on the provider panel. And I don't want to waste his time and spend time talking to him and establishing a relationship if it's not going to continue, because it can't, right? You need to set this stuff up in the beginning. So this gentleman is getting really, really mad, and he starts screaming at me and hollering at me. And he said, you're too effing stupid to be my counselor. I said, well, in that case, I'm glad we found that out so quickly. Have a blessed day. And I hung up and I let him go. I figured, by the way, there was a postscript to that. About 10 seconds later, a lady called in, and I could see her name and the phone number on the screen. And she just left a message, said, hi, I'm so-and-so, here's my number, please call me back. And I didn't call her back. I let it go to voicemail. And about 30 seconds after that, the guy called me back a second time, right? And I didn't answer. He did not leave a message, and that's where it was left at. I just said, okay. I was letting him go have a fresh start with a new counselor, right? I could have worked with him, but he would have to come down a long way before this relationship was going to work. I'm not refusing to provide services to the guy, but we have to start off at a place that is going to be successful, that has a possibility of success, and I have a possibility to help him. I didn't believe that was going to happen because we started off so poorly, right? I understood the guy was upset. And obviously what he had come for and what the people were around him were telling him was that he needed to talk about anger management. He was an extremely angry man. He needed help in that way. That seemed to be the case that was going on. But once again, going back to the insurance company, right? He didn't even want to tell me the name of the insurance he had, and he had the best insurance in the world. I don't know what that was all about, but it's the idea that it doesn't matter if he had the best insurance. If I'm not on the panel, I cannot talk to him via that insurance. He would have to pay me directly, or we'd have to jump through the hoop of me being accepted by his insurance company, and around we go. Now, why do I tell you folks all this? Because here's the deal. Normally, when people call in, they don't talk to a counselor. They talk to the administrative staff. And the administrative staff, they do their magic. I don't know how they communicate and what information they pass back and forth between the person calling in looking for services and the insurance company. But they work that all out. And they figure out whether or not they can see this particular panel of counselors at their agency or not. And they work all those things out, and then they make the referral to the counselor, and the counselor knows all that stuff is taken care of. Also, what most agencies, all the agencies I've ever worked for do, they have what they call intake documentation. They send that to the client. They say, fill this stuff out. We're just trying to get some sort of a background, a bit of information on the person to identify what the person wants to work on and, what the issues are. And then if they work for an agency, and the agency has the power to choose, they might direct that client over to a particular counselor who has expertise in that area. Does that make sense? They're trying to find the right counselor for that client and vice versa. It's not just, take whatever comes up, which oftentimes when there's a glut of clients and a dearth of counselors, it happens. The agencies just give you who's ever available because there's nobody else, right? As a side note, you can request a different counselor. Sometimes it takes a little while, but sometimes it's worth your while to do that. In other words, if you talk with someone and you don't feel like you can connect with that person, you can say, God bless, I think I should probably talk to someone else. That's okay. Now, there are times when I talk to folks, I just don't think I'm a good match for them. I'm trying to help people. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to annoy them. So if I don't think I'm a good match, I will tell them that, and I will refer them back to where they can find another choice, right? And I can't choose for the clients, but I can choose for me. Like this gentleman who called up was so angry. I did not think I was a good choice for him. I think if we had met under different circumstances, I certainly could have dealt with his issues. I'm very familiar with anger and anger management. But we have to start off with both of us agreeing what we're there to do and what the client wants to accomplish. Do you want to calm down? Do you want to learn how to get along with people? Then I can help you. If all you want to do is scream and holler, well, sometimes counselors will take that kind of a client because they need the income. Other times it's like, I don't need that, right? If you're not here to accomplish anything, I don't particularly want to take my time to do it. I'm trying to be fair and honest, right? And I'm not trying to blow my horn here, folks. I'm just trying to tell you most counselors feel this way. We're trying to do good work. We're trying to work with people we can help. We don't waste your time. Don't take your money if I can't help you, etc. We're trying to be right in the world. So that's some of the issues behind insurance. If I had my way, I would talk with all the people I could help, and I wouldn't worry about money at all. But I'm not certain I want to turn it all over to the government and let them direct what happens there. But that's a whole nother story, and I don't want to get into arguments about politics. But that's the deal. Unfortunately, I do have to have an income in order to pay expenses and buy food, etc., and pay for this wonderful room that I do my work out of, right? I do have to pay for those things. I do pro bono work. I talk to folks who need to be having services. I do it a lot. I try to help clients out in any way I can. I direct people to services when I can't provide them. That's just the way I go about doing things. Now, going back to this Medicare thing, Medicare is a sticky wicket. I was told a while back that it was difficult to get payment and the payments were low, etc., etc., etc. And I was asked whether or not I took Medicare. And do I take it personally, like my own clients? No, because I'm not really on a panel as an individual. I'm on many panels with agencies. Connected with agencies, I'm on many panels, but as an individual, I'm not on any panel particularly, and I'm not on Medicare. So do I take Medicare personally? Well, no, not exactly. But through agencies, apparently one of my agencies I work for takes Kaiser Medicare. I don't know what the difference is. You have to call up the agency and find out, and whether or not we can connect as far as being a counselor and a client. So that's where that situation ends up. You'd have to check with the agency. If somebody wants that kind of referral, send me an email and I'll give you some information. I'll tell you how to contact that particular agency, and you can take it up with them, and we'll see where it goes. Other than that, I've said this before, and I remind folks, counselors are only licensed in the state in which they hold a license, which means that we're not supposed to be doing professional counseling services outside of the state, right? Can't do that. I cannot bill myself as being a professional counselor in Alaska, say, which might be a good thing to do, by the way, but I can't do that because I'm not licensed in Alaska. However, I can talk to anybody across the nation, across the world. I can talk to anybody on the planet, and they can submit some remunification or some gratitude for the time I took talking to them. You can send money that way, but I cannot provide your services as a professional licensed counselor outside of the state of California where I am licensed. But yes, we can talk, and I can't be your insurance company. But if you want to send a remuneration, we can work that out. That is possible. I'm not really pushing that. I have a lot of work right now, but I just let people know that. Also, I tell you that because I think a lot of other counselors can do the same thing. I'm probably not the only one. I think counselors are pretty much in the same boat that I am in, right? And we can talk to people anywhere on the planet. Basically, I'm talking to people in the United States because of language and culture, etc. They would be lined up, and I'm probably more likely to understand issues related to the culture than outside the culture. So I hope that's enough information on insurance companies right now. If you do have any more questions, please put them down in the comments below or send me an email. Particularly if it's lengthy, send me an email. And when you do send me an email, let me know whether or not I can mention your name and your issue on these posts here. Because right now, I don't want to mention the name if I don't have permission to do that. I'm not trying to reveal people's issues to the public at large. So I'm doing that to protect the people who communicate. If you want your name mentioned, fine, we'll work something out. Anyway, there it is. If you want to send an email, counselorscouch101@mail.com, right? Thank you for dropping by and sticking through this rather lengthy type of attempt at describing issues and situations around insurance. I thank you for dropping by. I look forward to talking with you next time. Have a blessed day.